My daughter humiliated me in front of her friends, saying I was old and stupid, so I canceled the college that I paid for her. Before we begin, drop a comment below telling me where in the world you are listening, and make sure to subscribe for more life-changing journeys. The envelope from Princeton University felt heavy in my hands. I traced my fingers over the embossed logo before handing it to Olivia. After 19 years of sacrifice, sleepless nights, and second jobs, my daughter's future was sealed inside. I got in! Olivia's scream pierced the kitchen as she danced around. Mom, I got in! Princeton, can you believe it? I couldn't stop the tears. Your father would have been so proud, I whispered, remembering Robert and how we'd dreamed of starting a family before his car accident 20 years ago. Olivia was already texting everyone she knew. We have to celebrate, like a real party. She looked up, her eyes calculating rather than joyful. The Henderson twins got into Yale, and their parents rented out Bellini's. Sweetheart, that's a bit out of our price range. I started, mentally reviewing our savings account. Mom, it's Princeton. Her voice took on that edge I'd learned to dread. Do you want me to look pathetic compared to everyone else? It's bad enough I have to say I'm adopted when people ask why my mom is practically a senior citizen. The barb stung, but I pushed it aside like I always did. Of course not, honey. We'll figure something out. 3 weeks later, our modest house was transformed into what Olivia deemed an acceptable celebration venue. I dipped into my emergency fund for catering, decorations, and even hired student bartenders. I stood in the kitchen, arranging hors d'oeuvres, when Olivia burst in with 3 friends from Lakeside Prep. Mom, where are the little shrimp things? She demanded, barely looking at me. Coming right up, I smiled at her friends. Congratulations to all of you on your acceptances. Mrs. Sullivan, your home is lovely, said Emma, the only one who bothered to meet my eyes. Oh God, Mom, don't start with the small talk. Olivia rolled her eyes. Just bring the food out when it's ready. After they left, I leaned against the counter, willing away the hurt. This was Olivia's night. The party was in full swing when I ventured upstairs for more napkins. As I passed the guest bedroom, I heard Olivia's laugh, followed by, "Can you imagine having to explain her to my college friends?" I froze, hand halfway to the doorknob. At least your real mom was probably young and cool. I recognized Brooke Henderson's voice. Like, was she a teen mom or something? I tell everyone my parents were brilliant grad students who died in an accident, Olivia said casually. It's less embarrassing than admitting I was adopted by a desperate old woman who couldn't have kids of her own. The ice in my veins spread to my fingertips. But she's paying for Princeton, right? Another voice asked. That's pretty generous. She's mortgaging the house, Olivia snorted, as if I'd let her off the hook after all the time she embarrassed me. Do you know last parent-teacher night she asked Mr. Phillips what existentialism meant? In front of everyone. It's not my fault she's too stupid to understand half the books I read. Laughter rippled through the room. She's like having a housekeeper who thinks she's your mom, Olivia continued, always hovering, asking about my day like she could possibly understand what my life is like. God, I can't wait to get to Princeton and finally drop the act. What act? Emma asked quietly. The Grateful Daughter Act. Olivia's voice dripped with contempt. Do you know how exhausting it is pretending to care about her feelings? Oh, Mom, thank you so much for working double shifts so I could go to ballet. She mimicked me cruelly, as if she didn't get exactly what she wanted someone to make her pathetic life seem meaningful. A glass shattered downstairs, followed by cheers. I should move, should confront her, should do something other than stand here, letting each word cut deeper. But you'll still visit her, right? Emma pressed. Only until I get my inheritance, Olivia laughed. The old lady's not going to live forever. And when she kicks it, this house is mine. Then I'll finally be free. I backed away silently, retreating to my bedroom. I caught my reflection in the mirror, gray-streaked hair, lines around my eyes, the dress I'd splurged on for tonight. For the first time, I saw myself through Olivia's eyes. Old, unsophisticated, embarrassing. The sounds of celebration continued downstairs, but inside me, something vital had cracked the foundation I'd built my entire adult life upon. The daughter I thought I knew, the love I thought we shared, the sacrifices I thought had meaning. It was all a lie, and I had no idea what to do next. The morning after the party, I cleaned up the aftermath while Olivia slept upstairs. Every champagne flute I washed, every crumpled napkin I collected felt like evidence of my own naivety. "Mom, is there coffee?" Olivia shuffled in around noon, hair tangled, eyes puffy from too little sleep. I poured her a cup without speaking. "Great party, right?" She scrolled through her phone. "Brooke's mom asked where we catered from. I told her it was the new place downtown, not that cheap deli you actually used." The casual lie struck me differently now. How many others had there been? "Olivia," I said quietly, "we need to talk." "Can't. Meeting Emma for brunch in an hour." She glanced up, finally noticing my expression. "What's wrong with you? You look weird." "I overheard your conversation with your friends last night, in the guest room." The change was instantaneous. Her face shifted from annoyance to calculation in a heartbeat. "What conversation?" she asked carefully. "The one where you called me old and stupid, where you said I was like a housekeeper, where you talked about waiting for me to die so you could get your inheritance." Olivia's laugh was too bright, too rehearsed. "Mom, we were just joking around. You know how girls are, we say crazy things just to sound cool. Do you tell people your real parents were brilliant grad students who died?" Her smile faltered. "I can't believe you're eavesdropping on me at my own celebration party." "Answer the question, Olivia. What does it matter?" She slammed her coffee cup down. "You know how people look at me when they realize I'm adopted, all that fake sympathy and those questions about my real family. It's easier to make something up, something that doesn't include me." "You're being ridiculous." She grabbed her phone. "I don't have time for this. I need to get ready." As she turned to leave, I said, "We need to discuss Princeton." "What's there to discuss? We already decided I'm going." "No, you decided. And I agreed to mortgage the house to make it happen. But now..." Something dangerous flashed in her eyes. "But now what? You're threatening to not pay for college because your feelings are hurt? Grow up." "Mom!" I flinched as if she'd struck me. In 19 years, I'd never heard such naked contempt in her voice. "This isn't about hurt feelings," I said. "This is about realizing I don't know who you are. I'm the same person I've always been." She crossed her arms. "You're just finally paying attention." That admission hung between us, damning in its honesty. "What happened to you?" I whispered. "Nothing happened to me," she spat. "Maybe this is who I've always been, and you were too desperate for someone to love you to notice." The cruelty was so calculated, so precise, I knew instantly she'd thought these words before. "Go to your brunch," I said, my voice eerily calm. "We'll continue this conversation when you get back." "There's nothing to continue." She grabbed her purse. "Just get over it and go back to planning how you'll redecorate my room when I leave for Princeton." After she slammed the door, I sank into a kitchen chair. In the quiet of our home, I tried to reconcile the daughter I thought I knew with the stranger who'd just walked out. I pulled out my phone and called the one person who might help me make sense of this. "Susan, it's Margaret. I need to talk to you about Olivia." My oldest friend hesitated before answering. "I've been waiting for this call for years, Maggie. Remember when Olivia was 16 and she told you I couldn't make your birthday dinner because I was sick?" Susan's voice crackled through the phone. "Yes," I replied, a knot forming in my stomach. "I wasn't sick. She called me that morning and said you wanted to keep it just family because you were feeling sensitive about turning 55. My grip tightened on the phone. "But I specifically asked her to invite you." "That's not all," Susan continued. "Remember when you couldn't attend my sister's funeral because Olivia had that panic attack before her theater performance? Of course, I felt terrible leaving you alone that day. Maggie, I saw her backstage 15 minutes after you called to cancel. She was laughing with her castmates like nothing had happened. The room seemed to tilt. That's not possible. She was hyperventilating. I'm sorry, but it's true. I have more examples if you need them." I didn't need more, but I listened anyway as Susan detailed years of manipulation. Olivia sabotaging my friendship with Anne from book club. Olivia telling my date Richard that I'd described him as financially unstable. Olivia losing birthday gifts from friends and later selling them online. "Why didn't you tell me?" I finally asked. Susan sighed. "I tried, subtly, many times, but you always had an explanation, a justification. After a while, it seemed kinder to let you believe what you needed to believe." After hanging up, I sat motionless at the kitchen table. Then, with sudden determination, I climbed the stairs to Olivia's room. I'd never invaded her privacy before. Now, I opened drawers, checked under the mattress, rifled through her desk. In the back of her closet, I found a shoebox filled with jewelry I thought had been lost years ago. My mother's pearl earrings, the bracelet Robert gave me on our 5th anniversary, even the sapphire pendant that had supposedly been stolen during a break-in. Under her bed was a leather-bound journal with a small lock. The key was on her keychain, the one she'd left behind in her rush. My hands trembled as I opened it, knowing I was crossing a line. The first entry was dated 3 years ago. Another day of playing the perfect daughter. Sometimes I think I deserve an Oscar for this performance. Em bought me that stupid laptop for getting straight A's, as if I would accept anything less than top of the line. Told her it would help with college applications, and watched her practically empty her savings account. So predictable. I flipped forward, each page more damning than the last. Em thinks I'm at SAT prep on Thursdays, actually going to Tyler's house. His parents are never home, and he always has good stuff. If Em ever found out I was drinking, she'd probably cry for days. So pathetic. The most recent entry made my blood run cold. Met with Dr. Hansen about Em's cognitive decline. He wouldn't commit to anything without seeing her, but gave me information about power of attorney. Once I'm 21, if I can document enough concerning behaviors, I could potentially manage her finances. 2 more years of playing the devoted daughter, then the house is as good as mine. She'll never know what hit her. I closed the journal, feeling physically ill. This wasn't teenage rebellion or normal growing pains. This was calculated, long-term deception. My phone pinged with a notification from my banking app, a $500 charge at Nordstrom that I hadn't authorized. I checked my wallet. My credit card was still there, but I remembered Olivia asking to borrow it last week to buy textbooks online. With shaking hands, I logged into my account to see months of unexplained charges. High-end restaurants, clothing stores, rideshare services to addresses I didn't recognize. I opened her laptop, password protected, of course, but I knew her patterns. I tried Princeton 2025 and was immediately granted access. Her email confirmed everything. Correspondence with Princeton about the exclusive summer program in Oxford she'd never mentioned. Messages to friends mocking my career, my education, my appearance. A draft letter to her high school counselor explaining why she was rejecting a full scholarship to State University in favor of Princeton. A full scholarship she'd never told me about. The sound of the front door jolted me back to reality. I quickly returned everything to its place and made my way downstairs, a strange calm settling over me. Olivia breezed in, still scrolling through her phone. "Emma says hi," she said without looking up. "Did you have a nice time?" My voice sounded foreign to my own ears. "It was fine. Look, about earlier." "I've been thinking," I interrupted. "You're right. I overreacted." Suspicion flashed across her face, quickly replaced by satisfaction. "Good. I knew you'd see reason. We should start making plans for Princeton. There's so much to do before September." Relief washed over her features. She thought she'd won, just like always. But as I smiled and nodded while she chattered about dorm decorations, I made a silent vow. This would be the last time Olivia Sullivan manipulated me. The game was about to change. The law office of Wilson & Associates occupied the 10th floor of a modest building downtown. Benjamin Wilson, my late husband's friend and our family attorney for 20 years, greeted me with a warm handshake. "Margaret, it's been too long," he said, guiding me to his office. "When you called, you mentioned some unexpected news?" I settled into the chair across from his desk. "Yes, it's about Robert's investment in that tech startup, NeuroSync." Ben nodded, recognition crossing his features. "The one you always called his lottery ticket?" "That's the one." I smiled faintly. Robert was so excited about their neural interface technology, even though everyone said it was too speculative. "I remember trying to talk him out of it," Ben admitted. "Not my finest moment as a financial advisor." "Well, I got a call yesterday. NeuroSync has been acquired by Mindframe Industries." I slid the paperwork across his desk. Apparently Robert's lottery ticket just paid off. Ben's eyes widened as he reviewed the documents. "Margaret, this is substantial. $560,000, I said, the number still surreal to me. "After taxes. This changes everything for you." "It does," I agreed, "but not in the way you might think." I spent the next hour explaining the situation with Olivia, the overheard conversation, Susan's revelations, the evidence I'd found. Ben listened without interruption, his expression growing increasingly troubled. "I understand your distress," he said finally. But what exactly are you planning to do? That's why I'm here. I need to know my options. Ben leaned back in his chair. Legally, you have no obligation to pay for Olivia's education, especially now that she's 18. The money from NeuroSync is undeniably yours alone. And the mortgage I was about to take out for Princeton can be canceled before anything is finalized. I nodded, a weight lifting from my shoulders. There's something else. I found evidence that Olivia was planning to seek power of attorney over me by documenting false cognitive decline. Ben's expression hardened. That's extremely concerning and potentially fraudulent. She also rejected a full scholarship to State University without telling me, which means she deliberately chose the option that would cost you the most, Ben concluded. Exactly. What do you want, Margaret? Truly? The question caught me off guard. What did I want? Revenge? Punishment? Neither felt right. I want her to learn the lesson I failed to teach her all these years, I said finally. That actions have consequences. That relationships require honesty. That love doesn't mean being a doormat. Ben nodded thoughtfully. Then perhaps we should craft a strategy that's educational rather than punitive. For the next 2 hours, we outlined a plan. First, I would transfer the money intended for Princeton into a separate account only I could access. Next, I would cancel all credit cards Olivia used as an authorized user. Finally, with Ben's guidance, I would establish a trust fund with specific conditions Olivia would need to meet to access it. This isn't about withholding support, Ben clarified. It's about creating accountability. As I prepared to leave, Ben handed me a university brochure. One more thing to consider. It's never too late to pursue your own education, Margaret. I stared at the brochure for the local community college. I couldn't possibly. Why not? You've put your dreams on hold for decades. Maybe it's time to revisit them. After all, you've always loved literature. Those journals you've kept all these years, they show real talent. I was surprised he remembered my old habit of writing daily reflections and short stories. Robert had always encouraged my writing, but after his accident, I'd set that dream aside to focus on making ends meet and raising Olivia. When I arrived home, Olivia was waiting, a stack of Princeton housing forms on the kitchen table. "Where have you been?" she demanded. "I needed your signature on these hours ago. I had a meeting with Ben Wilson." "The lawyer? Why?" I set my purse down carefully. "I received some unexpected news today. An investment your father made years ago has finally paid off." Olivia's eyes lit up with naked greed. "How much?" "Enough to change our lives," I said carefully. "But perhaps not in the way you're thinking." "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means I've had a revelation today, Olivia. About you. About me. About the relationship we've built on my blind devotion and your calculated manipulation." She froze, then quickly recovered. "Is this about what you overheard again?" "I told you we were just joking." "Stop lying," I said quietly. "I know about the scholarship you rejected. I know about the Oxford program you applied to without telling me. I know about the credit card charges and the stolen jewelry and the journal where you detailed plans to declare me mentally incompetent." The color drained from her face. "You went through my things? You had no right." "Perhaps not, but I had every reason." "So what now?" she demanded, defiance replacing shock. "You're going to punish me by not paying for Princeton? Ruin my future because I hurt your feelings?" "No," I said calmly. "I'm going to give you exactly what you need, not what you want. And what you need, Olivia, is a lesson in consequences." The confusion on her face would have been comical under different circumstances. "I don't understand." "You will," I promised. "Starting tomorrow." As I climbed the stairs, leaving her staring after me in bewilderment, I realized this was the first conversation we'd ever had where I hadn't yielded to her emotional manipulation. It felt like waking up from a very long sleep. "You're going back to school?" Olivia's voice dripped with disbelief as she stared at the community college enrollment form on the kitchen counter. "For what? It's not like you can start a career at your age." I continued making my coffee, refusing to take the bait. "I've always loved literature. Now I have the time and resources to study it properly." "This is about punishing me, isn't it?" She crossed her arms. "You're using Dad's money for yourself instead of my education." "I'm using my money to improve my life," I corrected gently. Something I should have done years ago. It had been 3 days since our confrontation, 3 days of strategic silence on my part while Olivia cycled between anger, manipulation, and desperate attempts to re-establish the status quo. She'd even made dinner last night, badly burnt lasagna, that I'd praised effusively while watching her calculate her next move. "What about Princeton?" she finally asked, the question I'd been waiting for. "I won't be paying for Princeton." The explosion was immediate. "You can't do this to me. I've already accepted. My friends all know. Do you have any idea how humiliating it would be to attend State University on a full scholarship instead?" I interrupted. "The one you rejected without telling me?" Olivia faltered. "That's different. Princeton opens doors that State never could. Then perhaps you should have been honest about your options, and we could have discussed them like adults." "This is insane," she muttered. "You're punishing me for trying to better myself." "No," I said evenly. "I'm allowing you to experience the natural consequences of dishonesty. There's a difference, so that's it? I just don't go to college?" Her voice cracked, and for a moment, I almost wavered. "You have options," I said, pulling out the folder Ben had helped me prepare. "I've contacted State University. They've agreed to reconsider your scholarship if you apply by the end of the week." Hope flickered in her eyes, quickly replaced by suspicion. "Why would you do that if you're so angry with me?" "Because despite everything, I am your mother, and I do want you to succeed." I paused. "But success built on manipulation isn't really success at all, is it?" She didn't answer, staring at the folder instead. "There's more," I continued. "I've established a trust fund for you." Her head snapped up. "A trust fund?" "With conditions," I clarified. "You'll receive a modest monthly stipend for living expenses while you attend college. The bulk of the money will become available after you've maintained full-time employment for 2 years following graduation." "2 years?" she spluttered. That's forever. It's called learning financial independence, something I should have taught you long ago." She paced the kitchen, calculations visibly running behind her eyes. "And if I refuse, then you're welcome to stay here, contribute to household expenses, and attend community college with me," I said mildly. "The choice is entirely yours." Olivia stopped pacing. "You've thought of everything, haven't you? I've had 19 years of making excuses for your behavior. It gives one plenty of time to reflect." She snatched the folder off the table. "I need to think." "Of course," I nodded. "In the meantime, I've canceled all your credit cards and transferred your car insurance to your name. The bills are in the folder." "You can't be serious." "Completely serious," I said. "Oh, and Olivia? The Princeton housing forms you needed me to sign?" I nodded toward the shredder in the corner. I thought it best to eliminate the temptation. After she stormed upstairs, I allowed myself a moment of doubt. Was I being too harsh? Too abrupt in changing the rules of our relationship? My phone rang, displaying Susan's name. "How did it go?" she asked immediately. "About as well as expected," I sighed. "She thinks I'm punishing her." "You're not," Susan said firmly. "You're finally parenting her. There's a difference." "What if she hates me for it?" "She might for a while. But Maggie, she was planning to have you declared incompetent to get your money. If that doesn't justify some tough love, I don't know what does." The doorbell interrupted our conversation. I opened it to find Daniel Matthews, my neighbor from 3 houses down, holding a stack of mail. "These were delivered to my box by mistake," he said with an apologetic smile. "I think the new carrier is still learning the route." "Thank you." "Daniel, would you like to come in for coffee?" The invitation surprised us both. In 5 years of living on the same street, our interactions had been limited to neighborly waves and brief conversations about the weather. "I'd like that," he said, after a moment's hesitation. As we settled in the kitchen, I found myself studying him properly for the first time. A professor of English literature at the community college, according to neighborhood gossip. Divorced, no children, around my age. "You seem different," he observed, accepting the coffee I offered. "Different how?" He considered his answer carefully. "More present somehow. Usually when we talk, it feels like you're halfway somewhere else." The observation was startling in its accuracy. How long had I been living that way, physically present but mentally consumed with Olivia's needs and wants? "I'm making some changes," I said simply. "Good changes, I hope?" I thought about the enrollment form on the counter, the trust documents in Ben's office, the canceled credit cards, and the shredded Princeton paperwork. "Necessary ones," I replied. From upstairs came the sound of a door slamming, followed by muffled cursing, as Olivia discovered another consequence of her actions. The home Wi-Fi password had been changed. Daniel raised an eyebrow. "My daughter is learning some difficult lessons," I explained. "Ah," he nodded. "The famous Olivia. I've seen her coming and going, but never had the pleasure of an introduction. Trust me, pleasure isn't the word I'd use right now. He laughed, and I found myself joining him, the first genuine laughter I'd experienced in days. You know, he said, glancing at the enrollment form. I teach Introduction to American Literature at the college, Tuesday and Thursday evenings. Are you recruiting potential students, Professor Matthews? Just offering information, he smiled. The class has a good mix of traditional and returning students. You might find it interesting. As he left, I realized what had been missing from our brief interaction, the constant calculation of how each word and gesture would impact someone else's emotional state. The exhausting vigilance I'd maintained for years with Olivia. Talking with Daniel had been easy, natural, refreshing. I picked up the enrollment form. Decision made. Whatever happened with Olivia, whether she chose State University or community college, whether she eventually understood my actions or resented them forever, I would no longer structure my entire existence around her reactions. For the first time in decades, I was making a choice solely for myself, and it felt like breathing after years underwater. 6 weeks later, I sat in Professor Matthews's classroom, heart pounding as he returned our first analytical essays. The red A on my paper sent a thrill of accomplishment through me that I hadn't experienced in years. Excellent insights on Fitzgerald's use of symbolism. Margaret, Daniel Professor Matthews in this context, commented as he passed my desk. Your perspective on the green light was particularly refreshing. Heat rose to my cheeks at the praise. At 58, I was old enough to be the mother of most students in the class, yet here I was, blushing like a schoolgirl. Don't forget, your group presentations on Hemingway are next Tuesday, Daniel reminded the class as we packed up. Margaret, could I speak with you for a moment? I approached his desk, clutching my essay. How are things at home? He asked quietly. He knew the broad strokes of my situation with Olivia. Over coffee after that first visit, I'd found myself unexpectedly unburdening to this near stranger who listened without judgment. Tense, I admitted. She's accepted the scholarship at State, but is treating it like exile to Siberia. Every conversation becomes a referendum on how I've ruined her life. Daniel nodded sympathetically. The hardest lessons are rarely appreciated in the moment. I keep wondering if I'm being too harsh. From what you've told me, you're finally being appropriately firm after years of enabling behavior that wasn't serving either of you. His validation eased the persistent guilt I'd been carrying. Thank you. I needed to hear that. That's not why I asked you to stay, though. He smiled, suddenly seeming almost nervous. The English department is hosting a lecture series on Gothic literature next month. I wondered if you might be interested in attending. As your student? I clarified, my heart inexplicably racing. As my guest, he specified, outside of our academic relationship. Wouldn't that create a conflict of interest? I asked, genuinely concerned. Daniel nodded. I've already spoken with the department chair. If you're comfortable with it, another professor would grade your remaining assignments this semester to avoid any ethical issues. His thoughtfulness touched me. You've really considered this. I have, he admitted. I value our intellectual connection too much to compromise it with impropriety. In that case, I'd like that very much. Walking to my car, I caught my reflection in a storefront window and paused. When had I started standing straighter? When had the perpetual worry lines between my brows softened? When had I last purchased clothes for myself, not on clearance? The woman looking back at me was still recognizably Margaret Sullivan, but something fundamental had shifted, a confidence that came not from external validation, but from rediscovering my own worth. At home, Olivia sat at the kitchen table surrounded by paperwork, scowling at her laptop. State's honors housing is already full, she announced without preamble. I have to choose between the regular dorms or a shared apartment off campus. What does your budget allow for? I asked, setting down my book bag. The question clearly irritated her. Since implementing our new financial arrangement, I'd refused to solve such problems for her. The apartment would be cheaper if I find 2 roommates, she admitted reluctantly. But I don't know anyone at State. Sounds like an opportunity to meet new people, I suggested. Starting dinner preparations. Olivia watched me with narrowed eyes. You're different lately. Am I? I don't know. Less available. The observation was telling. To Olivia, my value had always been measured by my availability to meet her needs. I have my own studies to focus on, I replied. Speaking of which, I got an A- on my first essay. Good for you, she said, not entirely succeeding at hiding her sarcasm. Learning to analyze The Great Gatsby will really transform your career prospects. Rather than rise to the bait, I simply continued chopping vegetables. Actually, I've been invited to a lecture series on Gothic literature next month. Thrilling, she rolled her eyes. With Professor Matthews. Something in my tone made her look up sharply. Wait, like a date? Yes, I said simply. You're dating my literature professor? Confusion warred with disgust on her face. He's not your professor, and yes, I'm exploring the possibility. That's weird, is it? I kept my tone light. I'm a single woman enjoying intellectual conversation with a man who shares my interests. Seems perfectly normal to me. You're almost 60. 58, I corrected, which means I potentially have decades of life ahead of me. Did you expect me to spend them all alone once you left for college? She had no answer for that. The truth was, she had never considered my life beyond its utility to hers. Whatever, she finally muttered, returning to her laptop. I need to make a decision about housing by Friday. The stipend you're allowing me barely covers anything. It covers necessities, I pointed out. If you want extras, you might consider a part-time job. A job? She looked genuinely shocked. While taking a full course load? Millions of students manage it every semester. This is punishment, she declared. You're deliberately making things difficult for me. No, Olivia, I'm introducing you to reality. I set down my knife. The reality most young adults face: balancing responsibilities, making financial decisions, experiencing consequences. All because you overheard one stupid conversation. That conversation was just the catalyst, I said quietly. This is about 19 years of patterns I should have addressed long ago. Our eyes met across the kitchen, and for a brief moment, something like understanding flickered in hers. Then her phone chimed, breaking the connection. It's Tyler, she said, checking the message. He got into state, too. Says he needs a roommate. Male roommate? I raised an eyebrow. Is that wise? She rolled her eyes. Tyler's gay, Mom. But thanks for the 1950s morality check. If he's reliable and respectful, it could be a good solution, I offered, refusing to be baited. Olivia seemed thrown by my reasonable response. She'd clearly expected opposition she could rail against. I'll tell him maybe, she said cautiously, as if waiting for the catch. The doorbell rang, and Olivia answered it before I could move. Susan's voice drifted from the entryway, followed by her appearance in the kitchen doorway. Book club night, she announced, holding up a bottle of wine. I brought the Pinot you like. Book club? Olivia echoed. First Thursday of the month, I explained, wiping my hands on a towel. We're discussing Rebecca tonight. Since when do you have a book club? Since 4 weeks ago, Susan supplied cheerfully. Your mom's analysis has been eye-opening. Apparently studying literature formally gives one quite the critical perspective. The look of complete bewilderment on Olivia's face might have been comical under different circumstances. She was watching her carefully constructed image of me, the predictable, manipulable doormat, crumble in real time. I made chicken for dinner, I told her. Help yourself whenever you're hungry. We'll be in the living room. As Susan and I left the kitchen, I heard Olivia's baffled murmur, "Who are you?" The question echoed in my mind as I greeted the 3 other women in our newly formed book club. Who was I, now that I was becoming the person I might have been all along, if I hadn't lost myself in the consuming role of Olivia's mother? I was still discovering the answer, one day at a time, and for the first time in decades, the uncertainty felt exhilarating rather than terrifying. You're not even listening to me, Olivia's voice escalated, filling the kitchen with her frustration. I heard every word, I replied calmly, looking up from my textbook. You don't want to attend States orientation because it conflicts with Brooke Henderson's Hamptons weekend. I simply asked if missing the official welcome events was wise. This isn't about orientation. This is about you controlling every aspect of my life now. I closed